Hello, Kelvin. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be on Kev-On Air. And we're so honored to have Mr. Kelvin Tang, co-founder and CEO of PONS AI, to be on the show today. One of the things that I think as I've gotten to know you is you are Hong Kong born, Hong Kong raised, very successful entrepreneur and with deep interest in artificial intelligence, in being an entrepreneur, and also in the art scene and crypto. I mean, the list goes on. You are a man of many trades. Could I, just before we go into a bit sort of your achievements in the commercial world, I'd love to understand more about your upbringing, because it's, in some ways, it's atypical in that you're a man of so many great interests and achievements. So how did somebody who was born in Hong Kong acquire that wide interest in so many different things? Because usually people, most of us would think that our education system in Hong Kong tends to be more focused on traditional professions, like banking, like law, and like medicine. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. It's a great honor to be accompanied by another great entrepreneur from Hong Kong.
Thank you.
So a little bit about my background. First of all, I don't think I've achieved any major success yet. I think we're just getting started, and we're just in the startup baby phase. But I guess I've done quite a lot of things given my time on Earth. A little bit about my background. I was born in Hong Kong, and at the age of 15, I moved to the UK to study at a boarding school there. And I think it comes with a set of excitement and challenges. It was actually looking back, it was a very enlightening time, because when I was in Hong Kong, I didn't really have any major focus. I didn't really study. I just played games and just having fun, I think. But that also got me to kind of have a lot of kind of local friends that we remain very close to this day. But when I went to the UK, I really see how a top UK school could be, and as a ethnically Chinese person there, obviously it comes with a set of challenges. But I had a great time, and I actually became the first ever Hong Kong head of house at the UK boarding school.
Wow.
And they are actually the best in biology in the UK. But back then, I had to chase all the studying, because as I mentioned, in Hong Kong, I was mainly playing games. I didn't quite study. But when I was in the boarding school environment, I had to really kind of prove myself and find a purpose in my life. And so I really enjoyed playing football. I really enjoyed sort of studying, because I think that would elevate sort of my own personal value. And so I think I was quite fortunate in that I got to meet with some very inspirational teachers. And as I mentioned, my UK school, Cameral, they're the best in biology in the UK. And so I really got to understand, okay, within the academic world, this is what the best do and teach. And so I was just chasing my curiosity and passion. And so I figured that the brain is the most interesting organ, I think, personally, on Earth, because all of our successes, all of our perception, emotions are driven by the brain. So I really wanted to understand how it all works at a fundamental level. And so neuroscience really gave me that perspective. And so, yeah, I then studied neuroscience at UCL. During my time in the UK, I was also somehow, participated in the singing contest. And I won the singing contest.
Oh, wow.
And then a kid reached out, also from Hong Kong. He was like, I've been playing a band for a couple years already. And he was 14 back then. I was like, how could you possibly play for a couple of years already? And he was like, do you want to form a band? And so, yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then so I co-founded the band, and the band is called Pandora, which continues to play today.
Wow.
They just got #1 on Gaoling Sam 903
Wow,
and
okay.
VTV also. So it's like 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of them. But we essentially performed for like 4 years as a student during my time doing neuroscience at UCL. And but eventually I left the band because I always wanted to start my own business. And even back when I was 13, 14, I would read Warren Buffett's book, looking into investing and sort of starting my own business, that kind of thing. And so given my circumstances, I never really had the opportunity to study business. And so one of the best things about the UK educational system is for business, you can actually venture in when you're in your master. And so eventually I actually got into the LSE, did a 2-year master's there, and also got to study abroad in Italy, in Milan actually. And so that kind of kick-started my business career, so to speak. And so then so basically I have a sort of musical background. Whilst doing neuroscience, my 3rd-year project was neuroaesthetics. So using like fMRI and MEG to scan people's brains to basically understand how we perceive beauty in the world. So do you perceive beauty faster, or biological beauty faster, or artifactual beauty like beautiful cars and buildings and stuff like that? And so that was like my project. And my supervisor, who I continue to be very good friends to this day, he is actually a big deal in the academic world. He published several papers on in Nature. His name is Prof. Samir Seki, so he's the founder of this field called neuroaesthetics. And so I was very privileged to be able to work under him, and we continue to be very good friends to this day. So yeah, I have a creative background, scientific background, and a business background. And so after graduation, I wanted to test myself. I wanted to, do the, sort of so-called society, most elite jobs, so like investment banking and also consulting. So I did a bit of that. I did equity derivatives, and also worked at Boston Consulting Group subsidiary, helping investment banks to cut costs. And then after that, I went to a tech company to basically assist the founder and CEO on everything like strategy and operations. And they are a UK headquartered company. And they have about 800 people around the world, with 600 people in mainland actually, with their own factory. So they basically make customized technology hardware, like your headphone printed with Trinity Medical Center logo or something like that. So tailor-made for you. And so there, I really got to understand. Okay, if I could see how running an 800-person business is, then I feel pretty confident about starting my own thing myself. That might have been a bit naive once I actually jumped into the entrepreneurial world. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage people to start as early as possible. So I think that I actually started a little bit late, but still, that's kind of like my story.
Wow, no, there's so many things you've just touched on. Which,
yeah, too many, sorry.
No, very exciting, and I'd love to learn more about each one. One thing that you just shared is about artificial intelligence. In the recent years, and especially in the last year, with the advent of ChatGPT, it's really taken off locally, regionally, and globally. But you were quite advanced in some sense that you were very, 10 years ago already, you were very interested and fascinated by artificial intelligence. Could you share a bit about, at that time, what did you see in AI that made you drew you towards that field? And at that time, what were the potential that you saw? And 10 years on now, has a lot of what you thought would happen, has it materialized?
That's a very interesting question. So as I mentioned, I used to work in neuroaesthetics at UCL, and so I used to work in an area in London called Queen Square, and there's also the UCL Gatsby Institute, which is for computational neuroscience. So a CHeng, like a senior student, PhD student, was Demis Hassabis. And so Demis is the founder and CEO of DeepMind. And back in 2014, he sold his company to Google. And so I was reading in the news, like everyone was raving about the AI thing. And I was like, what is this? Like, because I was studying neuroscience, but I didn't really touch on anything AI related. And what really got me was understanding what DeepMind was building, and they were building basically AlphaGo. So AlphaGo is this AI Go chess machine, and actually beat the best in the world. And so that really got me interested in AI. And so that was 2014, 2015. When I went to the LSE, we also had some modules on innovation. And so we would study sort of like AI and also blockchain, the benefit of that. And actually my master's dissertation was on blockchain back in 2015. And I saw the potential value there to basically have a trustless system, like globally kind of everyone could agree on the distributed ledger. So it's called DLT back then. So I've always been very much interested in cutting edge technology. But I think AI for me really is transformational. I think on so many levels in terms of technology adoption and also the speed at which it's developing. So I think back then everyone, when I actually started my company or pondering about starting my own company, it was back in 2018, 2019. I think everybody was still thinking, well, human creativity would be the last thing that AI could replace. Everyone thought that like laborers, blue-collar jobs, or at least self-driving cars was going to be in existence in 2020, right? Replacing drivers and stuff like that. But that actually proved to be the opposite. Like self-driving cars will happen, but it will take a lot longer just because like the final edge cases are just so hard to solve and it requires so much safety. Whereas with the rise of generative AI, really in the past, I mean, it's been in existence for some time, but really what really brought it mainstream was OpenAI, ChatGPT, and also DALL-E and stuff like that. And so, yeah, to answer your question, did I see anything that changed in the AI field? I think everyone would expect self-driving cars would come before some AI so-called getting to the field of human creativity. But now, actually, you can see great, artistic apps like Midjourney can generate concept art for movies and games and everything. Yes. And ourselves also, we generate images and text useful for, let's say, marketing for companies. Yeah, it's totally flipped the script. But yeah, as I was saying, like last year, like sort of Web3 and Metaverse was all the hype. And actually, we as a company, PONS AI, we actually collaborated with Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund to exhibit at K11 Museum. And we gave a speech on how AI could generate NFTs and stuff like that. But to be fair, like no one really cared about the AI side. And most people were just, most people care about the NFT. But we did see the interest in AI personalized assets, for example. Yeah. And so in a couple of days, we got like, 500 people making their own personalized NFT, basically co-creating with the AI Van Gogh and painting the selfies in AI style. Yeah. But the technology has dramatically improved in the past year. And so when you compare, like exactly last time this year, the aesthetic quality of the AI outputs compared to what we can do now is night and day. It's crazy.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. It's so interesting that your company, PONS AI, is able to put together art, artificial intelligence, crypto and NFT, as you described. Each of those things to normal people, it's already very new. There's a lot of social media news about it, but yeah, I think it's one of those things that not a lot of people really know what it's about. But yet your company touches on all four and has been able to put all four of these elements into spearheading and making it a commercial product and platform. Could you maybe first, I'd love to invite you to share a bit. How do you define those four things to a normal person? And then how did PONS AI come about to put them all together in one platform?
Yeah, so I'll first explain like each of the things and then probably go into like how I started the company and the sort of product evolution. And so generative AI is really a relatively new thing where AI is able to create new content. So back then AI was mostly really analytical. You give some big data to it, it will analyze it, but it wouldn't really generate any new form of media. But now with generative AI, you can generate like new content in terms of text, in terms of image, in terms of videos, in terms of 3D, sound, also audio, music. So that's generative AI. And blockchain is really, like Web3 is really an internet of value. And Web3 is basically like an internet that is built on a blockchain, and we have to understand what a blockchain is. A blockchain is basically a distributed ledger technology where basically there's a database in the cloud and everyone can see publicly what people owns what. And so it's like a database system that really can get consensus between everybody. That's in a nutshell. And then art tech, for me, is really combining, art and technology together. And so it's not really a new thing. I mean, I would say, video camcorders was a very impressive art tech in the past 100 years or so in camera. And so, we've always had art tech, but, I think, in this day of age, it's probably the most exciting time in terms of art tech, because we have this AI and human co-creation capability. And also, with blockchain, you can actually have something called smart contracts, where as a creator, you can actually create some digital assets, let's say NFT, and if you sell it, you can actually have a resale royalty. So the traditional art system doesn't guarantee that, but in the digital world, you can guarantee that. So those are the technologies that we mostly touch on. In terms of like our product trajectory for PONS AI, we really started as a art marketplace, helping global artists to sell their physical art and also NFTs, and with the AI capability to co-create. So for example, you want this artist's work, but you want to have a cheaper version of it. Let's say just use this artist's art style to draw yourself. You can use AI to co-create it. And we try to compensate the artist, with that resale royalty that I just talked about. So that was what we majorly focused on when we launched in 2021 October. And that got pretty good reception because our artists are very impressive. Although they're young, they have exhibited in M+, they have exhibited in the British Museum, acquired by the British Museum actually, in Christie's also. And some from, Zhongyang Meiyuan in Beijing, some from, Parsons in New York, and some from Central St. Martin's.
Wow.
So, I feel very proud that we actually organized a show for them at K11 Museum, bringing, all the artists from all around the world, selling NFTs for them, and also with the AI co-creation capability. So we got to thank Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund for that, and K11. So that's that. But as we discovered that like the Web3 NFT market was coming down because of, the global macroeconomic, challenges, and also, FTX and stuff like that, it proved pretty challenging for us in the short term to focus on Web3. And so we have to basically go back to our team, like to understand what is our core technology, what is our core capability. And really, we were all mostly AI engineers. And so, one of our co-founders, he's from Tsinghua and Berkeley, doing AI and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. And so basically, this year, 2023, at the start of the year, we explored a new direction, which is using generative AI to generate product photography or social media content. So imagine you're an e-commerce seller. Typically, if you have to take some product photography of your, let's say, product that you're selling, you have to like hire a product photographer, you have to schedule it, and then you get to get the lighting, get the shots, camera, everything. It might cost you thousands of dollars and weeks to actually have those content. But now you can actually generate those pretty well in seconds with our feature. So that's one feature that we built. But a major feature that we are launching now, actually, this is our latest feature, and I think this is really impactful, which is AI greeting cards. So Hallmark is an American gifting company. They sell 4 billion worth of cards every year. So imagine their whole setup. They would have their card manufacturers, they'd have their own in-house designers. But when you, as a user, you go to a card gifting shop, there are only fixed templates, basically, static designs. It might have 50, it might have 100, but it's certainly not something that is super personalized. So if you want to give something to your wife or to your kids, is that card really personalized? And so now with generative AI, we can actually get that to super personalized. Like you can describe it, type the prompts. Let's say it's a medical doctor, with a cat next to you or something like that, like something fun for a happy birthday. You can generate that. So we have that platform to build these AI greeting cards. Essentially, if you think the analogy with the physical world, you have the card manufacturer in Dongguan and you have the designers in, I don't know, Beijing or in London or whatever. Now we have the card manufacturer in our GPU and our designer also in the GPU because the GPU is doing all the calculation. So we basically generate these digital greeting cards and it's much cheaper than the physical cards. So it's like 50% cheaper. And you can also deliver them on demand digitally, let's say via WhatsApp, WeChat, whatever. And so we're crafting this new blue ocean of AI greeting cards or gift cards or invitation to empower people. Basically, we basically give every person an AI designer and an AI ghostwriter, because even the message can be AI generated very well, and you just tweak it and you can generate something very meaningful. So we want to basically build an AI hallmark and to empower people to elevate meaning in the gifting experience.
Yeah. That's very exciting. I mean, I'll definitely be the first to use it to help, you know, send anniversary cards to my wife and birthday cards to my kids. You know, just now you touched on Web3. You know, I have a overly simplistic definition, and I love to, you know, share it with you so that you can correct me on it. So how I define Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 is to look at content and ownership. So Web 1.0, I always thought of it more as that the content was only read-only, or that you could not create content, and the ownership was also not yours. With Web 2.0, which is I think most of what we see today that we're using, that is where we can create content, read and write on it commonly, but yet the content is still not owned by us. And for Web 3.0, where, you know, it is now available where we can continue to read and write and generate content, but yet it's also on platforms that we own. So I don't know if this definition of defining 1, 2, 3 is correct, but that's just my overly simplistic definition.
No,
I'd love to get with you.
You're right. You're right. Exactly that.
Okay.
Exactly that. Exactly
That's just in my very, you know, minimalistic mind on how to define Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, because I think a lot of us who are not from a tech background find it hard to grasp what Web 1.0, 1.2, 2.0, Web 3.0. And the other part I think you mentioned about NFT and art, you know, and it's very exciting that, you know, you shared about the uses in where one could use it, for example, with anniversary cards and birthday cards. So now that NFT and crypto is where it is right now, I'm sure actually, I personally think it's just a short, tougher period, but in the long run, I still think that, you know, crypto has its value as an asset. But how does, could you enlighten us with your company? How do people actually commercially essentially make a living off your platform? Like could you enlighten our viewers on how that works?
Yeah. So by the way, those AI greeting cards, they don't have to be NFTs. And I think that Web3 is for sure here to stay. It's just a very tough environment for, you know, pretty much all industries. But it's here to stay. And I think it's particularly useful to certain use cases. I don't think it's useful to every single case, just like you cannot fit a spanner, like a tool, on everything. But so Web3, I think, for example, is very useful for artists. So let's say a digital artist, his or her native form is to create a JPEG. You know, it's like designing on an iPad and create a JPEG, or create an MP4. Maybe I'm a digital artist that makes videos. To print that out, or to kind of showcase it not in its native form, is already kind of damaging the sort of actual aesthetic appreciation experience. It should be appreciated natively, and also, I think, from an asset transfer perspective, transfer natively. So now, as a digital artist, you can actually launch those things as NFTs and actually sell it on platforms. You know, there are so many platforms out there. And potentially make a resale royalty out of it. Every single transaction is out of it. So, and from a collector perspective, you can actually go on this distributed ledger, this blockchain, to see who owns what. Was it actually created by this artist's address and everything? So I think it's actually useful in this case. So that's why you see, you know, auction houses still embracing Web3 and helping artists to sell the digital art natively. And also it creates a new category for them to sell stuff. So it's for sure here to stay in this bracket, but is it going to be applied to every single thing? Because Web3 has some friction to it. You know, for example, you have to create a crypto wallet. You have to understand what blockchain is. You have to understand what NFT is, and stuff might get stolen, or just the general sentiment might be very speculative, because anything related to value, people find a way to game them.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just a pretty unfortunate thing with, you know, the speculative nature of NFT last year. But to be fair, I expected it to pop because, frankly, if you create a digital art and you create a physical art, like, why is there any difference between the digital version and the physical version? The value should be the same, really.
Yeah.
Why is the digital version 10 times more expensive than the physical? It doesn't make any sense.
You know, as somebody who also started a company very recently, actually, but I would say that it's very encouraging as well, because your company was started exactly during the COVID pandemic. Could you share a bit about your experience as an entrepreneur? What are some of the lessons you might have learned already? What are some of the highlights? And you mentioned about Alibaba Entrepreneurship Fund. How has that supported you? And is something like that easily accessible by other entrepreneurs? How would you advise budding future entrepreneurs that might be one of our viewers today?
Yeah. I don't think I can advise people, but I would just share my experience and take what's useful from it. But, you know, I think we launched at a time which was during COVID, in the midst of it. And I think it comes with its own set of challenges and opportunities. Like, for example, because of COVID, although it was really, really sad, but I think the digital adoption was greatly accelerated by all companies.
Yes.
And so that also drove sort of like the whole NFT thing and, you know, AI and everything. And so it drove digital adoption. But at the same time, when we had to organize a physical show, because of I think it was the fourth wave, we had to delay our Jumpstarter event. And so we were going to show actually back in January 2022, but it actually delayed to May 2022. But if you think of the market, it already came down quite a bit. And so the timing was not great, but we still helped certain artists to sell their art. So I'm very proud of that. And so, you know, to get back to your question, and now it's a different sort of environment again, because 2021 was still a bull market, you know, for a VC, but I think every year could understand that last year was a very particularly tough year, especially with rising rates and high inflation coming out of COVID. All these consequences are coming out. And so we really go from an era of zero interest rate from, you know, 2008 to like a couple months ago, or like a year ago, to now high rates. And so people are very reluctant to invest because, or even like the equity markets has taken a big hit. And so it's a very tough market, I would say, actually, as a startup entrepreneur, and even for VCs. There's been recent, you know, reporting that more VCs will die. So if more VCs die, then less startups will get money, and so more startups will die. So it's a pretty challenging environment everywhere. But I think with challenges, it comes opportunities, and that's why I think I'm a very optimistic person. I always try to find a way to benefit from all situation. So for us, for example, now in an era of, you know, lower spending, it might benefit us because people might not actually buy, let's say, physical cards, or they find like cheaper alternatives that can actually still elevate the experience. And so for us, for the greeting card or for the marketing content, if you want to reduce costs but also keep the efficiency or even increase the efficiency and the aesthetic quality of it, you can use AI. So this is actually a perfect timing for us to some extent. But it's still tough because, you know, different companies have lower budgets, or, you know, they just don't want to spend. So it comes with its own set of challenges. But I would say if there's anything that I could like advise budding entrepreneurs, is that like have that perseverance, expect the worst to happen, and if you're okay with that, then you're ready to do it. Yeah.
No, it's very encouraging, and I think you know, a lot of people always say that, you know, being an entrepreneur is often the most challenging, the type of life experience. And I think you, not only in its nature is it challenging, but as you shared, you started in a very challenging time. But I think with your optimism, your perseverance, I think, you know, it's very evident that your company is, you know, achieving and helping your artists, and I think that's very noble and very admirable. You know, I think also just in the next few years, I'd love to get your insights on where you see AI, crypto, NFT, blockchain. Like, where do you see, for a commoner, like, where do you see all this developing, or what are some of the future prospects that we could see maybe in the next few years?
Yeah, I think for AI, it's pretty evident that like if you just miss like maybe a month or two of news, it's already come to like a new world pretty much. And so it's accelerating so fast. And because it's the hype now, all the big funds are pouring money into this field. And to be honest, if some startup entrepreneurs that are in other fields, they will find it very tough to raise money, but just because it's very tough to raise money anyways. And the firms are pouring money into this generative AI field. But I think with something so hyped, it might also backfire to some extent because the technology might not be ready. If people just look at headlines and stuff like that, it's just a lot of hype. But generative AI is for sure here to stay and will transform every single industry, and it will accelerate very fast. And I think that's why different entities like government entities and different people should like come out and voice their opinion on, okay, how do we potentially regulate AI? How do we make sure AI benefits us? Because it could potentially replace a lot of jobs. And some people say that like, I mean, I'm very bullish on AI and tech in general, but some people say that, oh, if you look at the past, or like the Industrial Revolution and so on and so forth, new technologies have always benefited humans in terms of creating newer jobs and getting out of more monotonous job. But AI is really the first ever machine that can make decisions of itself and do it better than humans in some domains. Yes. And so it could actually replace a lot of humans. And so we have to understand its risks, but we have to also understand its benefits. So for example, in the medical field, it can reach new advances that, maybe curing cancer can take 10 times faster or something, right? So there are a lot of potential benefits, but as a community as a whole, we should like talk more about like how AI should be regulated and stuff like that. So that's on the AI side, but I'm still very bullish on it. And I think with all of these new, I guess, sort of global partnerships and so on and so forth between companies even to make sure that we have AI in control, under our control, I think that's a very positive sign. In terms of like Web3 blockchain, I think it will take a couple more years to recover, especially with crypto, just because I think in general, if you look at every single investment category, everyone's gone to fixed income. So if you have a high interest rates, then might as well put money in the bank, right? So and also I think there needs to be real useful use cases to prove that this is actually beneficial to people for mass adoption. So I do think that for digital art, for example, it's a real use case. Other things that require provenance on demand, basically you don't need to hire someone to check whether something is real or not. You can just check the ledger on a website. I think that would be really useful. Yeah, but in terms of user experience and stuff like that, it has to dramatically improve to show that, like, to show that actually people own the assets that they have. Those are my takes on the technology front in the next couple of years.
Right. So Kelvin, I think you're being a Hong Kong entrepreneur. You touched on AI, crypto, art, and NFT, and blockchain, Web3. I'd love to understand. Recent years we've been really trying to encourage innovation in Hong Kong and entrepreneurs. How would you see why did you start your company in Hong Kong? And what are some pros and cons of doing it in Hong Kong?
Yeah, obviously I was born in Hong Kong, and we've always been known as the connector, right? The East meets West connector, and with a low tax environment, with business stability. So back then, I was like, it's a no-brainer to come back to Hong Kong to start a business, even just as a sort of like a holding company or that kind of thing. And then I also realized that actually talents from Hong Kong are very good. Good at English, so we can talk at the US, Europe market, but also good at Mandarin, so we can talk at the mainland market. So, and just if you look at Hong Kong students compared to students from all around the world, we always come out on top, like definitely top 3, 5. So I have a lot of confidence in the local talents. And so that's why I came back. But obviously, in the past few years, I think there's been quite a lot of challenges as Hong Kong, as a place to attract talents and stuff like that. But I do think that we offer a lot of benefits. For example, I think everything can be improved, but just the fact that there are stuff like Science Park or Cyberport to help entrepreneurs, to give them equity-free funds. I think all my entrepreneur friends from abroad are very jealous. Although the process is very, very, cumbersome and stuff like that, it's not entirely founder-friendly, if I have to speak it that way. But it's a very, very good initiative. And when I bring my foreign friends to Hong Kong Science Park, just look at the beautiful, hardware that we've built, and it's a great environment, and it just continues to get better. And so while there are a lot of things that can be improved, this is actually one of the great things. And I think, I had the privilege to meet with President Xi Jinping when he came to Hong Kong on the 25th anniversary, and that actually gave more motivation to the Hong Kong Science Park community, especially the management, to do even greater things. And I'm actually very proud to be a science park company, for example. And other policies that are great, for example, as I mentioned, one of our engineers is from Tsinghua and Berkeley. I could actually hire him with government subsidies. And it's, again, like a great initiative, great policy. But then obviously there are challenges that come with it, for example, like claiming back the money is pretty tough. So much paperwork, and frankly, no founder wants to do that kind of stuff. But I do understand that there are people outside who try to game the system and try to get all this free money. So where's the balance? I think that they should consult more startup founders when they do these things, make it more streamlined, make it faster. Then we can help more Hong Kong entrepreneurs to have a safer safety net, to start something new and to hire global talents to work here. But I think the policies are in place, and there are a lot more things we can do better. As I mentioned, there's another great initiative that I discovered, which is called EMF, so Enterprise Marketing Fund. Basically, everywhere we go, I went to the US, Silicon Valley, Washington, DC, mainland Shanghai, Hangzhou, Greater Bay Area, Vietnam, Portugal. Everywhere we showcase, we claim that money, and the government actually supports you to go abroad to promote your company. Right. So thankfully, we have one like Hong Kong TDC Startup Express. They've given us a lot of support in terms of like media coverage and going abroad to promote our products. So that's been really useful in terms of getting global feedback, like what do people want in different markets. And so basically I want to show people how Hong Kong entrepreneurs can do successful business all across the world, not just in Hong Kong. People can believe that Hong Kong startup entrepreneurs can go to mainland successfully, can go to Southeast Asia, Europe, US. But it's a long journey, and we're just like getting started. Yes. But that is like one of the things that drives me.
Right. Yeah. No, that's very insightful. I never knew that we had such great incentives and support for entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. And you mentioned that some of our equity incentives that is not commonly offered overseas.
It's actually like equity free.
Equity free.
Yeah, so they don't take any equity in the company, they just give you a grant. And so, it's a fantastic thing. But can they do more? For sure. Like, I think they can do more. So that's on the public sector side, I would say, like semi-public sector. On the private sector, like as I mentioned, we are part of Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund Network. They have something called Hong Kong AI Lab. And so I think it's the most sort of premium AI accelerator in Hong Kong, where we can actually train our AI models and everything with the free GPU. And so that is another great thing. I have to thank the Alibaba team and the Hong Kong AI Lab team to provide that. But again, there are many things that can improve, But as I mentioned, if my foreign entrepreneur friend sees me getting all of these benefits from Hong Kong, they're pretty jealous. But then again, we are in the age of global competition. So to actually attract the best talents, let's say from the West, is actually pretty tough for a Hong Kong startup. So, we are thankful that we have been able to attract US and UK, AI engineers, but also in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, and in mainland also. And so, but I think we can do much more in terms of helping Hong Kong companies to attract foreign talents better, easier, and there are quite a lot of things to be done. Because while I'm very bullish on Hong Kong's INT system going forward, let's just say that we are growing at a pace of 5 to 10% a year. But if some other place is growing at a pace of 25, 30% a year, let's say, just great initiatives. I'm not going to name names, but there are a lot of, basically every single place on earth is trying to compete for top talents.
Yes.
So we have to be relative. We cannot just kind of look at ourselves and be like, oh, like we made this compared to ourselves last year. Like, yeah, that's good, but like someone else is doing much better. Yeah. And so they will attract your talents away. Yeah. So we have to look at that pretty objectively, I think.
Right. You also do a lot of work in mainland. Mm-hmm. In your industry, where do you see China's edge compared to other countries and other regions in the world? You mentioned it's, in particular, I'd say your field faces a lot of global competition because it's pretty much, boundary-free work, unlike some other industries, right? But where do you see China's edge in this?
Yeah, well, obviously, part of the reason why I came back to Hong Kong to start a business was to have the potential of accessing this 1.4 billion people market and a culture that we somewhat understand. I think Hong Kong and mainland, there is some cultural difference for sure. But but when I was in the UK, for example, especially 2012 to 2016, 17, everyone was like, oh, learn more about Chinese and stuff like that. It was a great period of like, all these Western companies looking into China and like, how do we actually benefit from this market? And so as a entrepreneur, capitalist, like obviously this is like a dream where you have such a large market. And so with mainland, I'm also very impressed by like the young people's like creativity. You go to Shanghai, you go to Shenzhen, there are so many new things happening. The innovation is so cutting edge, I think, even better than other places on earth for something like, for example, scan and pay in the restaurant or some mobile apps, for example. They're just very efficient. Yes. So I'm very impressed by the innovation there. And so I actually quite enjoy going to mainland, let's say, on a weekend and stuff like that to get inspiration. Because the way they do, let's say, 微信读书, it's like a reading app compared to Audible. You can see some differences and you can see some innovation. Maybe when you order food on Meituan and it's a robot delivering food to you to your room. It's like some crazy stuff. I showed my friends abroad, they're like, what the hell is going on? It's like amazing. And so, there's a lot of great innovation. But I think it also comes with some challenges. For example, a term that I keep hearing mainland people say is like juan. It's like very negative competition. Because there are too many people, too many great people, like Hai Gui or like local talents, just coming back from abroad. Everyone's like from Harvard, Stanford, LSE, UCL, whatever. And they come back to mainland and compete. I'm personally very excited about the competition because I'm like, I want to be the best in what I do. I might as well throw myself in the game and try to see what happens. And so thankfully, as I mentioned, we are part of like the Hong Kong TDC Startup Express winner. We have showcased many times in Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai as well. And so I got to see some local innovation, and I also got to see where our edge is. I think our AI technology is right up there. And for the AI greeting cards, for example, I don't think they have something like that. But it's a different set of like gifting. For example, I give you a Weixin Rep Pocket, but maybe for the younger generation, they crave that creativity, they crave that innovation. They are very opinionated as well. They have their own thinking and stuff. And so they might want something else. They might want a high quality like experience of greeting your friend or gifting to your friend rather than like just red pocket, like so money driven. I think a lot of the younger mainland youngsters, they really want that meaning, I think, in life. Just like every millennial or Gen Z in like, most in like developed countries, really. And so, but I'm personally very excited about the development there. It has its own challenges, but I think long-term bullish. Just look at all the great CEOs that have gone to China in the past months. LVMH, Bernard Arnault, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. The trend is very clear. Yeah,
I think your example with Meituan, essentially it's like an Uber or Grab app where you order, but rather than what we're experiencing in most parts of the world, where a person or motorcyclist sends you a delivery, you're having a robot. give you the delivery. So that's, I mean, such a stark contrast to many other places. You know, just now I think you shared a very exciting part of last year when, as part of your business at Science Park, President Xi came to Hong Kong for the 25th anniversary, and you met him and also visited your company. How did that feel, and how did it, like, or what are some of your personal reflections and encouragement from President Xi visiting you?
Yeah, so he visited a group of us, so some young entrepreneurs from Hong Kong, some scientists in different fields, very renowned artists from Hong Kong, and like university heads, basically. Yeah, it was a pretty surreal experience. I was very privileged to be able to like meet with him and invited to meet with him. And he, you know, some like political figure that you mostly see on TV is like right in front of you and giving you a sharing. And actually, it was a very warm sharing. And yeah, I think just very privileged to meet with the president, really. And so, yeah, and I think it gave a lot of encouragement to Hong Kong Science Park in terms of doing better. And you know, just look at like kind of where he went and also where his wife went is Science Park, so showcasing the importance of INT system in Hong Kong, and the M+, you know, the West Kowloon Cultural District, so arts and culture. So that is, I think, the future of Hong Kong, which is INT and arts and culture. And we feel pretty privileged to be in the intersection of that.
Yes.
And hopefully do something great for Hong Kong and for mainland to showcase that, you know, we can still do great business harmoniously across the world. Yeah. So.
Wow, no, that's, I mean, as you said, you President Xi highlighted a few different key initiatives for Hong Kong, and art and culture and tech. You're in the midst. Your company does exactly both. So that's very exciting to see as your company grows in the next few years. You know, I think you know, one of the last questions I'd love to understand, I'm sure a lot of our viewers would like to also understand, is, you know, we've gotten to understand you as a person and your company, your visions on these different very innovative areas of art, tech, crypto, NFT. You're somebody who grew up in Hong Kong. How is it that you're so unique, and how did you become someone with such a broad mindset, with so many different interests, that global mindset as well, and very passionate and about, you know, tech in mainland and about mainland as well? Like, what is it that you see in your upbringing or in your background that has made you who you are today with these unique features?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hong Kong, and I think I went to a private school and I went to local school, and that gave me an understanding of, okay, what is like Hong Kong locality culture is like what is it? And then I had the privilege to go to the UK to study there, and I made friends with people from all across the world, and that, I think, opened up my eyes greatly. Even when I was in Hong Kong, I was already quite international. I would say, like, I was already kind of thinking in English for some reason, and I loved like the UK culture. For example, I love Manchester United, and that's why I went to the UK more than anything else. I didn't really care about the school or anything. I just went to the UK and met with friends from literally all around the world. And as I mentioned, I then became the head of house of the boarding school, like the first ever Hong Kong person. And so I got to understand like different cultures. How do you bring different cultures together? And actually, ever since then, I think I see myself more as a global citizen. And I just take inspiration from all cultures, you know, and you know, take everything that's useful and discard what is not. I think that is part of the Bruce Lee philosophy. You know, as a young kid, I was very inspired by Bruce Lee already because of my dad. I think he was like playing Bruce Lee movies and stuff. And you know, I think Bruce Lee's philosophy really shaped me. And that kind of chase for passion and curiosity is very innate. I don't know how it came about. Kind of mostly inborn, I guess. But I think the UK educational system did help with that. Like, did help push that. And so I just started chasing my passion, you know, like, and I love, like, for example, Muay Thai, watching MMA and stuff like that. And, you know, that fighter spirit in me gives me perseverance and persistence. And then as I started my company, I've had a lot of opportunities to travel around the world. And you know, for example, I went to Silicon Valley and I was like very impressed by how the people there are just so innovative and so eager to help each other succeed. Like, for example, like the startup founders that would want to help other startup founders succeed. The companies want to adopt startup innovation, whereas maybe here in Hong Kong we can do a little bit better. So I just kind of see myself as a global citizen, and I love whatever that interests me and would make my life more, I guess, meaningful and intellectual. The major reason why I started my company was actually back when I was like 26, I had an existential crisis. I was like, this is not what I want my life to be. I was pretty depressed in my job day to day. I don't see any major future in it. And I just wanted to wake up feeling excited about what I do. So that's my North Star. And looking back with my musical career, I'm someone who really loves creativity. I'm a scientist by trade. I studied neuroscience, and I still think I'm fundamentally a scientist to some extent. So I want to have innovation in what I do, creativity, innovation, and business. I've always been interested in business, as I mentioned. So like bring all of these things together and do something that would excite me when I wake up. And so that's why I'm pretty energized, although maybe I have like big eye bags and stuff.
No.
But yeah, I think that's it. Just keep chasing your passion, and you know, it's like what Steve Jobs said, like chase your passion, and when you look back, everything starts to make sense. But at the time, it doesn't make any sense at all. I guess that's what's happening. So, but then, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'll keep chasing my passion. I still love what I do, and I hope to achieve great success with it. And afterwards, maybe I'll do something else, like direct a movie or something like that.
Wow. You know, as you know, hearing you share, it's, you know, your life motto, I feel, is keep your passion, keep dreaming, and be persistent. And there's so many things that that you share that I really think we could be interviewing you in so many different fields just to talk about arts and innovation and in business. So it's such an honor to have you today, Kelvin, and we look forward to hopefully having you back on Kev-On Air again soon.
Yeah,
thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.